All right, welcome everyone to weekly seg number 7 for TCL 63. Coming on the home stretch now. Let's hand over to Chase for this week's demos.
Yeah. Is there a team that would like to go first to demo this week?
Raquel, do you want to start just in case we lose connection? I don't know how it's in Hereford.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so let me share my screen.
Thank you.
Sorry, I have a dinosaur of a laptop, so it doesn't like when I'm online.
Karina, if you have Slack open, that tends to take up a lot of
okay.
power. I would recommend closing it if you're having problems.
Okay, let's see. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I'm not sure if anyone is talking because I can't hear anything, so maybe nobody was talking.
You can go. Would you like to explain that one, the delete item model?
Oh, okay. So I couldn't hear anyone talking, but because I asked if anyone can hear me, and I didn't hear anything, so I didn't say anything.
Oh goodness.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So I'll get started explaining the model, and then Raquel is gonna introduce you to the function. So our job was to add a delete button to each item on the list. And if the user, oh, I just realized, is that your background, Raquel?
No, you can explain a little bit about that.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, I'm just hearing all sorts of someone talking, so I wasn't sure if you were talking to me. Okay. Clicking the delete button would open the modal. We want to make sure that we confirm that the user actually wants to delete the item off the list. And then it has the option to cancel, which closes the modal, or confirm, and then the item is deleted off the list. So as I said, Raquel is going to go into the details of the functions we added. I initially thought this was going to be a complicated issue because I had tried to implement a model in one of my projects, like from scratch. But then Raquel pointed out that we are expected to use a library, and that was a smart decision because it's really hard to make a model that accessible in React. At least that's what has been my experience. So we tried the actual React model library, and we are really happy with it in terms of accessibility. So what I showed you, that just comes in, built in. All we had to do is kind of like add a little bit of CSS, so it's not full page and just like it's centered in the middle of the page, and we added some background. I'm just going to go over a couple of the feature that documentation of the library is kind of like suggesting that we add. So this line of code here, a set Apple element, is basically just for accessibility reasons. Once the modal is on, there's no focus on the page. So somebody who's a screen reader user cannot kind of like keep tabbing and maybe get somewhere on the page and kind of like outside the modal. And the other one is this line over here, 17, on request close the modal. That's kind of like a built-in feature that if you press escape or if you click outside the modal, it's also going to close the modal. these are normally features that one would have to build in if you're building a model like this from scratch. Yeah, and as we explained in the PR, we really like the model. Like if I'm kind of like now I'm inside the model, you know, I keep pressing tab, I can't get out of it unless I press confirm or cancel if I'm a keyboard user, so a screen reader user. Which is great. And it's also, if I close the model, notice that it brings the focus back on the delete button that initiated the opening of the model. So that's about it about the React model library. Raquel, do you want to go over some of the functions we added?
Yes, please. In the Firebase, can you
Yes.
start by the Firebase one? Thank you. So we found this item ref from the update item, and we just passed to it because then it's just straightforward accessing the item that we needed to update from the previous function. So we just reuse that one, and then we just use the basic try and catch over there, and just as is a nice async function, we just use the await, and then the delete doc, which is a method from Firebase, and then just deleting that item reference, which is the specific item. It's basically for that function. And could you please switch for the list item.jsx? Thank you. Yeah, so for that one, it's just we created this handle delete, which is basically just being triggered by the specific, I think, if I'm not mistaken, we have the button up below, and then we, like Corina explained, we had, I'm sorry, I cannot see the screen right now. We decided to create a different component, basically just and the button that, which is that one we see in the front end. Delete one is to trigger as of now, we share the mobile, and then we'll have when I showed which, and I'm sorry, I cannot see.
Is it-
Just let me try. I'm on my cell phone, but I stopped seeing your screen is not showing anymore. Yeah. You doing something?
No, I was just asking, like I couldn't tell, like I lost you a few times, so I was wondering if it was just me or everybody else had the same issue.
Yeah, it seems like
Oh,
her
I'm so
sound.
is my 5G in the airport. But what we're saying is that I cannot see your screen as of now. But
Oh,
I was
okay,
trying to explain
yeah,
how the
so I'm
handle delete
showing.
function.
Okay. I'm showing the component that you actually created. So yeah, so initially we just kind of like have everything in the list item, and then Raquel had the great idea to actually make a separate component for the model. So
Yeah, that problem was very straightforward. I'm sorry, guys, I cannot see the screen as of now. I'm on my cell phone, but the handle delete was very easy in that sense. And then our first approach was basically creating the list item.jsx, and then we separated later on into a component because we want to make sure that it was actually working before we separated. So that was the thought process behind. And of course, Corina, feel free to explain more. I cannot see the screen as of now. And yeah.
yeah, I'm happy to. Actually, I'm not sure. Anyone has any questions? Like, I'm happy to go over some of the details that maybe were not coming through from Raquel from the airport.
Yeah.
How was it implementing the modal? Did you all have difficulties using the library or like passing any logic to the modal?
Absolutely none.
That's awesome. Nice.
I have to say, like I was, I remember when we decided about, dividing the issues, and Raquel said, that she would like something straightforward. And I was thinking in the back of my head, I said, this is not going to be straightforward, Raquel, but then she pointed out that because I didn't see the note about with the suggestion to use a library. So that's when I just thought that we're going to build this from scratch, and I didn't mind it because I had some experience with it, but the documentation is really clear on what one has to do. Yeah, not just they give you examples, so it was like the least amount of time we spent was on the on that library. So as I said, it's like fully functional for accessibility reasons, and obviously highly recommended. And it has a lot of the things are just like built in, behind the scene. I'm curious how it works behind the scene, but one doesn't have to know what does behind the scene to use it. And just
Yeah, it was very interesting that. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead, finish.
It was very interesting that you already had experience with this React model, and I've never seen before. Was very straightforward, and how quickly it was to actually figure it out. And since you already kind of knew it, it became even easier to use it. So that's good.
Yeah, I mean, what Raquel mentioned is that when I had to build the model for my site, I came across this library and I thought I was too good to use something that was already made. So I kind of I said, no, I'm going to build it from scratch. And now I think I'm going to go back to using this because there's a lot of features that I was not able to, because I had to create for my site, I had to create an overlay and the modal, and I can't get the overlay to make to be completely disabled. Like I could escape my modal and kind of like tab through the page, which this library is not allowing. I do want to say, I think Devin raised a good question about being able to delete if, let's say, we're disconnected from Firebase, and that could happen if there's no internet connection. And that was kind of a head scratcher because I didn't know what was happening, but it turns out that there is some offline persistence that's built in Firebase. So if you disable if you turn off your Wi-Fi, you'll notice that it's still going to delete. Somehow, if you can kind of like watch maybe on a different computer that's connected to the internet, if you can see what's happening on the Firebase side, you'll notice that the item is not deleted. Okay, so once you sync back in, the Firebase is also going to be updated. I was trying to look into how to turn that off, and I tried a few things that were shared by Firebase that I wasn't able to do it. Any questions for us? I'm going to stop the share.
Nice job. It seems very like good user interface, and I like, as usual, that you all checked the accessibility of it before wrapping up your issue. That's really nice.
Yep.
Oh, it's really great. Shengwan and Alvan, would you like to?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, I will go over the demo and then Shangguan will explain the code. So the issue was to sort the list items based on a series of criteria. First was to list the items that are overdue first, and then we would list the items that are due soon. and then kind of soon, and then the ones that are not so soon. And then we would list anything that has a last purchase day over 60 days as inactive. And within the same criteria, for example, within the soon due purchase date, we would also sort them alphabetically. And as you see, we have, like, for example, in the soon criteria, we have cupcake and then cake. And if you go to the add items, if you add any new items, for example, if Shangon adds any item and then chooses a purchase date, as we add, it's gonna automatically go to the corresponding due frequency category.
Great. So in terms of the functionality, we created 3 utility functions in the date.js folder. So the first is to add a label that's called the purchase schedule. So it takes in the day last purchase and day next purchase as inputs. And then based on the calculation, it adds a label. So in order to calculate the overdue tag, we also created a separate utility function called date has passed that takes in the day next purchase. So if the day next purchase has already passed today's date, then this statement will return true and it will mark the item as overdue. And so once we have those 2 utility functions defined, we call the function in the list item.jsx. So we add the label that's purchase urgency. And then shout out to Raquel for her great suggestion that because we have to use the kind of soon with dash and not soon with dash in the CSS in order to add different colors. But in the UI, we don't necessarily want to display the dash to confuse the users. So she actually suggested we map the one from dash to without dash and then set up the display urgency. So down here, you can see in the return statement here, we inside the span, we add the CSS class that's purchase urgency as the one with dash, and then display urgency are the ones that are normal text. So that's it about adding the tag. And in terms of the sorting functionality, we define a separate function called sort item by date. And then it basically sorts the item as the overdue item on the top and then active before inactive. And then if they are within the same tag, then it's sorted from the closest to next purchase to the longest or the furthest to next day purchase. And then lastly, if they have the same days until next purchase, then we sort it by name alphabetically. So we call this function inside the Firebase.js that takes in data as an input. And then we add the extra, so purchase schedule tag and the days till next purchase as extra attributes for each item. Then we pass it to the sort function, and then we call the compare function sort items by date to return the newly sorted data. And then lastly, in the app.js, once we have the data, we use that function to have the sorted data, and we pass it to the list page view to have the item displayed. Yeah, that's it. Any questions?
Yeah, I had a question, which was just, so this SEO is fairly complex in terms of being very algorithm heavy. Did you all have like a specific approach about how you're all going to do? Like, I'm just curious as to what was your thought process and how do we get all of these things sorted in this way?
Yeah, so in terms of the issue, I think we first made a decision to split it into 2 parts. So first, we don't want to worry about the sorting, just think about adding the tag. And that helps us a lot easier because then we can create a separate utility function by step. So I think breaking the issue into smaller steps definitely helps.
Nice. Makes sense.
Aslan, you have anything to add?
No, I actually really like the way that we, not to tap on ourselves on the shoulder, but like the approach, which was your suggestion to first tag them and then sort through the tags, was so much easier rather than the traditional sorting that you have to go through every data piece and then put it in a sorted list. This made it much easier.
Yeah, and in terms of the sorting algorithm itself, the documentation in the issue helps. So it links to the sorting page, and then it shows, or we have to define a separate compare function. So that also helps.
Really nice job implementing this. It's a lot more complicated than it sounds to do this sorting, but you all did, I think you did it very elegantly, trying to, write the code in a way that's easy to understand and also like very efficient. So nice job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's go sharing.
Sorry, technical difficulties. We're gonna do retros now. So let me send you all our board. Here we go. Sorry. Okay, you should see it in the Zoom chat. So this will be just like usual. We will give ourselves, yeah, I think 7 minutes is probably good. I actually will start a timer. And as usual, try and remember to add your initials at the end just to make it easier to, when we're reading through, to know who said what. And you should see a timer on my thing. So we'll just do for 7 minutes. Try and add things to each column if you can. And then we'll check back in and read through them.
Raquel, you can type your answer in the chat and I can add it for you. So the first is appreciations. I'll just type in the chat so we can have it.
Thank you.
Yep.
I can also share my screen too, so you can see it. so that is time. If you still had something you wanted to jot down, feel free to put it on the board, but we'll go ahead and get started sharing what we wrote. So the first one, actually, before we jump into appreciations, I'm just going to remind us of what we had talked about last time. So our action items from last time, and we can kind of think about whether we've been able to implement these. The first one was to use console log regularly. Were you all able to use console logging to help you in debugging over the past 2 weeks? I see Karina's nodding her head. Raquel says yes, with many S's. So I think definitely that was successful. Great. So yeah, using console logs is a great way of helping us, especially while we're trying to work through data flow and everything like that. We also had clean up the Firebase data by October 6th, but I believe this already happened. I think, was it Raquel that cleaned up a lot, which was great. Thanks, Raquel. Yeah, I think that helped everyone to kind of focus in on a couple of our lists instead of having too much messy data. And then we also talked about this, reworking some of the comments where applicable. I think that we were thinking more of doing this towards the end, but has anyone been able to clean up any comments in our code so far, or are we holding off on doing that until we're wrapping up the project maybe? Yeah, I saw some shaking of the heads. I think this was not one we intended to finish by today, so I think it's okay. I think we were planning on, as we start finishing up on things over this upcoming week and next, just keep in mind that we wanted to rework some of the comments, and maybe I'll even copy this so we can add it to our action items. Ooh, go resume controls. Oh gosh, okay. Doesn't want to, there we go. Sorry. We'll put that in action items for this upcoming. Sorry guys, I'm not on my regular computer and this keyboard does not. There we go. All right. Okay, so now we'll go ahead and get started with our appreciations. Shangwan wrote the first one. Do you want to go ahead and read it?
Yeah, so I said appreciate all the insights we got from code review. So they are not only helpful, but also takes the solution one step further.
Nice. Yeah, I appreciate you all giving thoughtful reviews and also incorporating reviews when they made sense. All right, Aslan.
I found suggestions from all teammates very helpful in breaking through obstacles, clever alternatives, and even book suggestions on better coding.
That's awesome. Nice. I'm so glad that you all are learning from each other so much. Okay, I wrote the next one. I said, shout out to all the team members for staying so engaged this entire time. You all have been putting up great code, thoughtful reviews, and asking great questions at every opportunity. Yeah, and you've maintained that level of engagement this whole time, which is great. This one.
Me, I forgot.
No worries.
No, and you said it. Don't forget your initials. And
It's okay. I almost forgot too. Don't worry.
I wish there was an option to go back and edit, but I'm really thankful for such cool-headed teammates. I can get a bit overly excited over certain approaches or features, or in general, you don't know me well, but that's how I am. But everyone has been very calmly helping me stay focused. Thank you.
Karina, I appreciate your enthusiasm. It makes me excited too. So, but yeah, that's great. Thank you. Devin?
Yeah, so again, I appreciate the level of communication among the team. And I think your ability to collaborate in this way sets you apart in an extremely good way. Because it's always very good to see, like in the Slack channel, you all are very transparent about, the decisions that you all make and how you come to them. And it's just such a good thing to see that, because most times, or most of the times, it just tends to be radio silence in another group. So just keep this up, and this will bode very well for you in the future in any position that you'll have.
Totally agree. Raquel, I don't know if you can see my screen.
No, it's too crazy here, but I can read from my comments.
Okay, perfect. Yeah.
So
You have the
the appreciation is just
one?
saying that, yeah, that you guys are amazing and I will miss you all. That's all.
Very sweet. gonna make me cry. Thanks, Raquel. Okay, we can move on then to our successes column. What went well from the past 2 weeks? And first up is Devin.
Yeah, so I think that attention to detail with respect to accessibility, it's always great to see it focus on the smaller things that improved usability, especially for me as a keyboard user who likes to just tab through forms. It's just so nice to see such thought being put behind a lot of these things that most people don't think about, but it actually helps the user experience in such a big way. So nice job, everyone.
Totally agree. Yeah, I feel like Collabbies tend to pay more attention to accessibility than the average developer, and this team is paying even more attention to accessibility than the average Collabby. So you guys are like top notch. Shangwan?
Yeah, it's utilize external libraries to make our solution more appealing, not just from UI, but also functionality.
Yeah, absolutely. Don't reinvent the wheel if you don't have to. Aslan?
Resolving merge conflicts and cleaning up the database thanks to Raquel.
Yeah, great. And merge conflicts. You remember you all were, it was so scary even just a month and a half ago, and you all are so much more confident about it now. That's great. Raquel, your what went well comment?
Oh, just a minute, let me find. Thank you for being understanding about my crazy trip this weekend, Karina. I really appreciate it.
Wonderful. Yeah, and thanks for making time, Raquel, to join our call from the airport. I appreciate that. All right, I was the next one. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, I was just saying yes. I just could not miss.
Okay, I said that it seems like you all have been gaining confidence in general, but specifically I've noticed in your problem solving skills, figuring out ways of working through problems, and then also in providing feedback to one another in a very thoughtful way, and being able to incorporate it. So it just seems like you're getting more and more comfortable with trusting yourselves and making decisions, technical decisions. So that's awesome to see. Chase?
Yeah, just noted that, the app is coming along so well, but it's been so great to see everyone's like unique contributions every week kind of blend together and come together into this great app.
Yeah, I totally agree. That's wonderful. Devin?
Yeah, so the team's PRs are always well written and easy to follow. And the way you present the information always adds that extra bit of polish to the issue. Such great presentation at the end of everything.
Yeah, I agree. And that shows like a really good level of understanding to be able to organize your thoughts and present it in a way that's easy to follow. All right, and Karina?
Didn't forget on this one, okay? Yeah, so this was a little bit of I was a bit selfish with this comment, like a personal, win, because I got to use 2 different libraries in 2 weeks. I never used Bootstrap, like, and I know everybody, just maybe because I was introduced to it right like my first week of HTML and CSS, so I never touched a library out of fear. Look, I was playing coy and cool that I'm gonna create it from scratch, but I was always fearful. So yeah, now I feel like I have a superpower.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think it's great. Learning to do things on your own is great, but also learning how to use tools available to you is also really important. So it's great that you've had that opportunity to do that. All right, lovely. Next, under the what could be improved column, Devin?
Yes, I would say code readability. So don't forget to focus on making your code readable, especially when we have to work on a lot of things that involve our algorithms and a lot of writing functions. And don't forget, like, we're actually on a team, so your code is automatically going to be read and used by other people. Yeah, and don't be afraid to use longer names, for your variables and functions. Like, I feel like you all try to keep things short at the expense of making things less readable. And it's okay to have a function that's a little bit longer named if it tells, if it's self-describing, basically.
Yeah, for sure. Naming things is, a lot of people say, is the hardest part of being a developer, just like giving functions good names or variables good names. But yeah, when they're descriptive, it really does help with the readability. That's a great point, Devin. Okay, that was the only thing we had under the what could be improved column. Did anyone else have anything that they didn't have time to write down? Seems like things are going pretty well in general. But yeah, this is a great something for us to focus on for the next 2 weeks. Other than reworking the comments where applicable, do we have maybe an action item that we want to add based on Devin's comment? Or any other action items that we want to work on over the next 2 weeks?
I think one thing based on, oh, go ahead.
Go ahead, go ahead.
I think based on Devin's comment, one thing we could do is improve just readability across the app and as well as functionality. I know there's like for some part, maybe we call the same function or the same variable with different names or with a underscore, things like that. And also like if we used some function in this place and in other place, we use a different function or use a use state instead, then we want to make it consistent. So just improve consistency in terms of both functionality and code readability across the app.
Does this capture what you're saying? Improve readability across the app, use consistent patterns and names?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So we'll add that. Karina, were you going to say something else as well?
Yeah, but the next second I realized that, we still have a few weeks, and I'm sure, I was just thinking of kind of, taking a step back in terms of accessibility and just kind of like try everything again. And, but that might be already on the list as an upcoming, thing to work on. So I'm not sure if that's the case.
That's okay. I believe it is something that will be flagged, but if we're not sure, we can still add it to the action items. If we have it reminder twice, that's not a problem. It's better safe than sorry. So we can say maybe let's see, like do an accessibility audit. Accessibility audit before we wrap up project. And so maybe in the next 2 weeks or maybe after that, but we'll just put it in our action items column just so that we have the reminder to make sure that we've done this. Yeah, love it. Any other action items that we want to keep in mind as we head into the next?
I think that one I was mentioning on Slack, that we need to kind of hide the nav links in certain situations. So maybe we can add that.
Yeah, sure. Hide the nav links in certain situations where it isn't needed or appropriate. I'll say needed. We can put that as an action item. It's also, if you'll remember when we found the bug a few weeks ago when we created an issue together, you all can also totally add issues to the board if there's things that you want to work on in the future as another kind of reminder of what you want to do. We will only be working on this project we'll only be meeting regularly as a team for a few more weeks, but this is y'all's project, so you're welcome to continue working on it after the project wraps. Some teams do and some teams don't. So if you have a brilliant idea and you don't get to it during our time, you can always, if you all choose to continue working on it to improve it, that's definitely an option too. But yeah, hide the nav links in certain situations where it isn't needed. Any other action items?
Sure, it will be part of the styling and the UI. Maybe we also want to keep responsive design in mind as we go on styling.
Yeah, let's write it down just to be sure. So design, responsiveness in mind. Okay, great. Anything else? This is a great list. You're all being very thoughtful about how we can improve and also just being very forward thinking, which I love to see. So we've got this list available to you if you want to revisit as you're working on your issues to make sure you're keeping this in mind. But with that, I'm going to stop sharing and pass it over to Devin to look at this week's issue.
All right, here we are. So it's the very last issue for TCL 63, right? But it is a very big issue, so that's why it's just one. So issue number 13, as a user, I want the app to look professional and welcoming. So the last 2 weeks of this project will function a little differently than the rest. The team will self-organize around a lightweight design process and come up with a polished look and feel for the app, right? So this will require you to make decisions as a whole, well, together as a team, which you're fairly good at, to implement the vision. So the process outlined here is just a suggestion for how to proceed, but feel free to take whatever approach you see fit. So you'll notice that this is the last issue on the board, and that's because the expectation is for you to write some stories needed to complete the implementation of your design direction, right? As always, you can lean on your mentors for guidance if you're unsure of how to proceed. So the design process. So these are just a few things that you want to keep in mind as we go along with this issue. So what is the tone you're going for? What feeling are you trying to convey? So you could come up with 3 to 5 words that best captures how you want users to perceive the app. For example, it could be fun, clean, ironic, business-like, and many more. You can create a mood board. This is for the ones who are really into design. So mood board will help everyone get on the same page in terms of direction that you want to take design. And you could add elements on the mood board that represent the tone that you're trying to achieve. And you could decide on the fundamental elements of design, including the following. So typography, usually a great one. Google Fonts is a good choice. I'm sure all of you have used Google Fonts before. But you could consider the usability, whichever one you choose. And that may also extend to accessibility based on the style of the font. Colors. So you want to make sure these are accessible, and that would include things like contrast between background and font colors. If you're using labels, those kinds of things. Iconography and imagery. Again, you have a lot of freedom with many UI libraries to use icons and if the images that you choose. And then what you also want to do is decide whether you want to code your CSS from scratch or integrate a CSS framework. So there are pros and cons to both. Obviously, vanilla CSS gives you more control, but it can be a bit harder and it will take more time usually to achieve a given effect. Frameworks help you get things done faster, but you give up some of that control as well. If you do choose a framework, evaluate your opinions to make sure you choose one that suits your need, and consider the following: the quality of documentation, the ease of integration, if it's built with accessibility in mind, especially for TCL 63, and the activeness of the community that supports your framework. It may not be a big deal in this app, but might also say consider performance when choosing a framework. And there are a few that you could use, including Bootstrap, Chakra UI, Material UI, Semantic UI, Tailwind CSS, and many, many more. So this issue does come with a bit of freedom in terms of how you all approach it. But as always, reach out to us and ask questions. Ask questions that would help get you in the right direction for how you want the app to be used. Shangwan, as you had mentioned responsiveness, I might say one question I would ask very early on is, who is this app for? Who would be our user for this app? Is it going to be mobile first? Do we expect users to be using it on a mobile phone, or is it for a computer? So think of those things as well, just broadly, because it will help guide your decisions for how you choose to design the app itself. All right. Any questions about this one so far?
I'll just pipe in to say, if it's not already obvious, this is a 2-week issue, which is going to be different than what you all have been doing before. So you'll also want to think a little bit about what's your goal for this week? What do you want to demo this week and show off? And like, how are you going to split it up over the 2 weeks, since that's not something you've had to do before?
Yeah, no questions. I know there's a lot to think about with this one, and that's fine.
And for this week's, I guess, mentor review, do we just show you the progress, or how is it going to be?
Yeah, you can demo as much as you've, as far as you reached. If it's just the design process, what the decisions are, just what are your thoughts, even if it's just like a diagram, a flow diagram, any of those things. But I would say take time to plan, so that you have an idea of what you're building. Maybe at least by the second week, and take it from someone who's tried to build things without a plan. It takes longer when you don't have a plan.
Yeah, it's totally acceptable if you don't have any code changes yet, and you just spend this time deciding your user, like Devin was saying, and picking colors and fonts and figuring out the look, because that could easily take a week, and that's totally acceptable. Oh, Raquel asked Devin if creating a wireframe on Figma is allowed.
Yeah, of course, you can. I mean, once you're good with Figma, I would say do consider time, because I feel like it could take some time. But if it does give you a good general direction of what the app should look like or what it should feel like, yes, go for it.
Can I ask what happens after the 2 weeks? So do we still, are those 2 weeks the final ones, or we still have another week to work on the app, or, tie any loose ends?
Yeah, so at the end of the second week, I think it is within expectation. Well, that would be basically the last thing that we have. So at that meeting, you want to be able to present, like demo the app in its entirety, showcase all the functionality of it, with the UI that you all have chosen to implement.
Okay, so if we want, but you're saying that we can open some issues if we want. Can we do it in these 2 weeks, or it has to be after we're done officially as a group?
Yeah, I think we could write. I think we could write some, but we may have to prioritize based on time. And maybe you could categorize them as, is there something nice that'd be nice to have in the long run. Are they, I might prioritize things like bugs, early on. But yeah, there's no limit in terms of adding issues. And if you want to continue working on it, like Caitlin said, you could keep working on it. But it does look good to have issues, because it shows that it is still like a work in progress. It shows that you have put some thought into the app itself. Sorry, Caitlin, if I cut you off.
You're fine. Yeah, I would just say, like, think of it as your MVP, your most viable product. So is it functioning at the end of our 8 weeks together? That's your goal, is to have a working app to demo. So like Devin said, if there's a bug, we definitely want to address that. But if it's a new feature, maybe you save that until after your design work has finished, because that really can be a rabbit hole that you fall down of how to style everything. So you want to make sure that you get the design work done, and then you want to make sure that you have a functioning app at the end.
Yeah, and just to add to that, I would say just set realistic expectations for what is achievable within this 2 weeks, because there have been groups where they tried to do too much and then it ended up being an incomplete product. You actually have all the functionality, all the core functionalities in place already here. So don't stretch too far. I think it's better to showcase a good simple working product as opposed to something that's fancy and incomplete. All right, any more questions, comments, queries before we wrap this up? I know it's getting close to the end. It's kind of sad now. All right, so if nothing else, have a great week, everyone. I look forward to seeing the design collaboration that you'll have in Slack. And as always, feel free to reach out. I will be hosting office hours this week, so we could discuss more of these things then. Yeah. All right, have a great week, everyone.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye, y'all. Good luck.
Bye.